The impact on young Australians, who are interested in buying a home of their own, has been very significant. Australia's housing affordability now shapes the typical housing cycle, or housing career as some people call it. It is not sure why social relation is correlated with happiness, but there's evidence that when people feel more satisfied with their social relations, they will feel happier. In turn, when people feel happier, they will get more satisfied with social relations. Happy people tend to be social more with friends and have more interaction between family. As the world population grows, the aging population has become more serious. Aging percentage in the US is now 13% and is expected to be 23% in 2030. The situation is the same in Japan and Germany. There will be more than 20% of the German population aged over 65 years old in 2030. Aging problem is related to industrialization. Deliberate practice takes time and people also need to find and solve problems and mistakes during it. There is an example of studying geometry to demonstrate how important deliberate practice is. Key words include solitary practice, Climate change has been a big thing for a while, and carbon dioxide has been its main cause. Scientists estimate that soot causes 25% of human-caused global warming. It's the second leading cause of Arctic warming after carbon dioxide. Let's not underestimate the impact of this tiny particle. Firstly, the poverty rates in rural areas are much higher than those in urban areas, because most of the poor live in rural areas. Rural areas also have high infant mortality rate and low education level. It is important to make sure the population in rural areas have access to sanitation and education. It's the most versatile space vehicle, that has ever been built. We've used it to launch satellites. We've used it to repair satellites in orbit and put them back into orbit. We've used it to capture satellites and bring them back to Earth for repair. We've outfitted it with the space lab built by our European partners and used it before the era of the space station to do scientific research. With this type of structure, you'd pay your salespeople a straight albeit competitive salary, like all of your other employees, and nothing else. No bonuses, no commissions, and few, if any, sales incentives. Organizations use salary plus commission sales compensation plans when there are opportunities to support all salespeople on this structure, and when there are proper metrics in place for tracking sales to ensure that the splits are fair and accurate. This type of plan is often the better choice as opposed to straight salary, because it offers motivation to increase productivity and to achieve goals. The personal factors include people's belief on certain things and their individual thinking about it, while the environmental factors include temperature, air pressure, and the others thinking about them. In conclusion, one's determinants are affected by both himself and the environment. In terms of the size of economy, the US economy is more than the total amount of China, Japan, UK, and Germany. In terms of the industrial output, US output is $2.8 trillion, but it only equals to the sum of China and Japan. Traditionally, teachers use desks, chairs, paper and pencil to teach children handwriting and reading from paper. With the technological development, the way of teaching has been radically changed. Teachers are using new technology in classrooms. Education in the future will be focusing on developing children's critical thinking skills. In proper terminology, such a temporary boost of physical power would be called hysterical strength. The stories are almost always in the form of one person lifting a car off of another. In each of these cases, some aspect of leverage or buoyancy probably played some role in reducing the magnitude of the feat to something more believable. Of course, in some inventions happened along the way, but I've always considered the end the result, and I always consider that this invention to be byproducts of the learning process. The end product for me was always better understanding, or when one really succeeded in unifying theory that can help us in teaching the subject. In 1962, the technology did not yet exist to directly manipulate the genes of plants, and so IR8 was created by carefully crossing existing varieties, selecting the best from each generation, further modifying them, and finally finding the best. Arctic is actually ocean surrounded by land, and so you can see here this is the UK down here, and this kind of Russia and then American Canada around here, and so there is a bit of land cover in our ice on the top in the Arctic. What is the London knowledge? It's the ability to remember the 25,000 streets, have it all interconnected and all the main arterial roads in and out of London. Cabbies need to know all this plus 1,000 points of specific interest, cafes, bars, public offices. They need to know them all as part of their training. Our aim through research is to move from this level of intuitive application of music through to informed use in our communities to take the next step in the understanding of the power of music in human life. They have a rather sophisticated way of measuring the effects of different policies on people's happiness. They are the only country to go that far, but you are now beginning to get other countries interested enough to do kind of white paper policy analyses of happiness research. What effects would it have if we used it more for public policy? Of course, there's lots of sugar in donuts of ice cream, or pastries, or other things that are sweet, candy of course, but there are other places where you see it, and you don't necessarily expect it.